Hello, my name is Juan Tabarez. Um, this is the makeup midterm for the Java class. Okay, I would show my face, but like I don't know how, so I'm just gonna work with it and what I have. So let's start with class. I'm gonna define them, and then I'm all gonna show you my our code. So a class can be defined as a template, or well, how I like to call it, a skeleton that describe the behavior or state that a not object of its type support. So the example, very basic example is like a class, let's say a human class, which has different states of or behaviors. It could be eye color or height or age. In this case, from our lab, we had a car class. We in our car, it's has its properties, which could be a brand, a model, a year, and a price. All of it is it's defining the state of an object. So which is gonna be its brand, its model, its year, and its price. Very basic, simple. Next, an object. So an object is an instance of a class. Object object have states and behavior. So now you're stating which one is the state and the behavior of it. Sorry. Uh, Anyways, um, like I was saying, a human. Let's create a human example. So in this case, let's do Juan, me. So which one is my gender? It could be male, age 18, hair brown, and weight 130. It's just an example. In this case, we created a car object. So we created our car object, which is the sport car. I'll get into it later on, which has the brand as Audi, the model as, sorry about that, as R8, year is 2020, so it's brand new. Price it's 15, 50, a thousand, 150, 100. It does have a spoiler, so that's true. So that's an object. It's fairly simple. Now, a constructor. A constructor is a special method that is used to initialize an object. The constructor is called when an object of a class is created. In this case, we're creating a sport class. So we need to call the sport car constructor, which is this one, the sport car. This is the default constructor. We could also have a car constructor, which is the default one. If you could also specify which parameters you want to have. So let's say this constructor is gonna take in all of the let's say string A, string B, int C, and global P. So now you're creating a car with all of this, and then you just define them. Brand, it's gonna be the A. Year model, it's gonna be in this case B. Your year, it's gonna be C. And your price is gonna be the P. I forgot the capital S. So we could create a car object. In this case, let's create one. Car, let's call it C, new car. So this is the default constructor, right? But we could add the like this constructor, which this parameter. So it's got a string, integer, and double. String, so Honda, and model, and the year. Let's make it, Obviously, we want a new one. And a price, 28, 20,000. There you go. Now we created a car called C in this case, which this parameter is a Honda Rogue year 2020. It costs 2,800 based on this constructor. So good so far. I'm gonna comment this out because I don't want to use it. Next, inheritance. So inheritance is a mechanism in which one object acquires all of the properties and behaviors of a parent object. The idea behind inheritance is that you can create new classes that are built upon existing classes. Inheritance. Sorry about the message again. So in this case, this is our superclass is gonna be the car class, and a subclass which are built upon the ca- class car class is gonna be minivan and sport car. So our subclass. Here you see minivan. It's extending the car class, and it has this as a it has a boolean ASD. You're like, is that the only thing it contains? No, it actually contains all of these, so such as the car class, plus an extra one, which is this. It inherits all of the car, all of the car, um, um, functions, and also like this states of the car of the object, which is the brand, model, year. It's already in the minivan, also with a sliding door. And also another example is also extending the car class is a sport car, which aside from having the brand, model, year, price, and all of these functions, it has a spoiler, a boolean, which is gonna determine if it has a spoiler or not. Next, overriding. So overriding is a feature that allows a subclass or child class to provide specific implementation of a method that is already provided by or on its superclass or parent class. This is fairly simple. So here we have our display display function on our car class, on our superclass. This is gonna print out the brand, model, year, and price. But over here on our minivan class, which is gonna, we have also display. They're spelled the same, display, and it does the same, but it also displays ASD, also sport car. Another example is gonna display all of the same plus spoiler. So on our main, we created a sport car class named S, and here a minivan and B. And when we use display, both of them are called the same, but it's overriding what a card did. So instead of displaying only these, it's gonna display in case of the minivan if it has a sliding door, or in case of a sport class if it has a spoiler. So let's see. So if we run it, oh, if we run it, then we see it has Audi, the brand, model, year, price, and it also displays in the case of the sport car if it has a spoiler, and in the case of the minivan if it has a sliding door. You can see it's not the same. It's not using just like the minivan. It depends if it's a minivan or a sport car, and it's overriding what car display did because it's not stopping at price. It's also displaying whether it has a spoiler in the case of the sport car or if it has a sliding door in the case of the minivan. Now, overloading. Overloading is a feature that allows a class to have more than one method having the same name. If the argument lists are different, it allows a class to have more than one constructor having different arguments and lists. Here, I create a fairly simple example. I'm just going to explain it. Here you have an adding function which takes in two variables and it adds and return that. But if you create another function which is called the same, but it has different number of argument or argument type, or it's not gonna give you an error. So it's basically called the same, but depending the argument you give, it's gonna do different things. So if we had the same thing, then it obviously gonna give us an error because you're defining the same function twice. But if you use different parameters, so you can create like different parameters, it's gonna be uh, it's gonna be the same. It's not gonna give you an error because it's even though they're called the same, it's not the same function. They're not doing the same thing because it takes different parameters. So here you can add even a string and it doesn't give you an error because it has different parameters or just one, such as I had it earlier. Basically different, you're overloading. So there's different ways you could use that function depending on the arguments you give it. Now, let's talk about static field. Static field belongs to the class, not instances of a class. All instances of any class will access the same static field variable. And also, going in hand with this is static method. Static method is a method that belongs to a class rather than instances of a class. This method is accessible by every instance of a class, but method defined in an instance are only accessible by the members of a class. So in this case, I created on my car class, I added a static string for the agency, which in this case is RGB4. This belongs to the class. If you create here a sport car S, you cannot change its agency. You can go as that agency equals whatever. You can it's not gonna change that. Let's add here after that. Oh, I guess you can do that. Okay, sorry, regarding that belongs to the class. Also, you can have an agency a static method agency which can in this case change the agency, but that belongs to the class. Not it doesn't belong to the object itself. Moving on. An array stores an array stores a fixed size sequential collection of elements of any size, same type. Arrays are used to store collection of data, but it's often more used to think of an array of a collection of variables of the same type. So in this case, I'm not gonna show you code because we know what an array is. We saw it in C++, and it's fairly basic. And they taught us on your first CS class. They taught you this, but it's I think it's a better way to look at it by pictures. In this case, this is memory, right? And in memory, we have a list array, my list, and it contains, in this case, 10 spaces. 10 is 10 spaces big. And all of them are gonna be double, as you can see, double. You can have the different int, string, double. No, it has to be all of the same, and they're grouped in memory consequentially. So they're all gonna be together in memory. See, there's no space. And the way you can access that is by starting from zero, My list, you open a square braces 0, and close square braces, you're accessing the first element, and so on and so forth. If this is the index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 starts from 0, and the content, all of them are going to be double. So format specifier. A format specifier begins with a percent character and terminates with a typical character, which indicates the type of data, int, float, etc. That would convert it to a basic manner in which the data would represent, decimal, hexadecimal, etc. In our class, we don't really use much format specifier, but for my example, I'm gonna show you with integers. So here, as stated on the definition, is after the percentage sign here after percentage d, which stands for it's gonna be for the integer, right? For that, you need to import the Java util plus to use the uh, formatter. With this, you can format the integer. In this case, we want it to be in the same column. So when creating columns of numbers, we want it to be at the same space position. So let me show you so you can see what I'm talking about. Uh, Sorry, mistake over there. So see, both of them are aligned. There's a space to show the negative sign, and if it's positive, then it's not gonna have anything, but it's all aligned. That's because we use this formatting. Percentage D. Let me show you what would happen. Let's say, actually, let's just print negative 2022, negative 222, sorry. So let's just print negative and positive without formatting. If we just print it like that, it's gonna give us, see, no space in between. So, but on our class, we didn't really use that much this formatting, but it's good to know always. And depending if it's an integer, string, a double, you're gonna change the letter after the percentage sign. Next, polymorphism. A polymorphism is the ability of an object to take any form. The most common use of polymorphism is occurs when a parent class reference is used to refer to the child class object. In this case, I also included a diagram because I think it's easier to understand if you see it as a diagram. So in this case, we have an animal class. It's the parent class or the superclass. And then we also have two subclasses, a dog class and a cat class. And the animal class has a make sound method, but dog class also have a make sound method and also cat class. This is the ability, this case, the animal, which is a dog, is gonna override the make sound method. And for the cat, it's gonna override also the make sound a method that was on the parents. On the parent. Next, abstract. Data abstraction is the process of hiding certain details and showing only essential information to the user. Abstraction can be achieved with either abstract classes or interface. In this case, we're gonna go to our homework that we did homework 2. We had a plane shape class, a circle class, and our area measurable. It has a abstract method for the get area. So here you're just defining, but you can access it. To access, you need to have an instance. To access the abstract class, it must be inherited from another class. So in this case, you're implementing the area measurable to get the area. It's here, but you can implement But on the circle here, in this case, you're overriding what the get area is gonna do, because the abstract doesn't do it's hiding. So it's not possible to create an object in this case from the abstract. You need to inherit so you can actually do something with it. So you're hiding it so the user don't touch it or mess with it. And the interface, which is also together with the abstract, very similar. An interface is a completely abstract class that is used to group related method to empty with empty bodies. So once again, here we have our interface measurable, and we have our method with it, which is our get area method, but it's empty, it doesn't have anything with it. And to access the inherent method, the interface must be also implemented. So in this case, we're on our plane shape. Here it is, implements the area measurable, which is this one. It's almost like inheriting more or less, and that way you can access it by in this case plane shape, the circle. Get area. So encapsulation. Encapsulation is Java. In Java is a mechanism of wrapping the data, variables and encoding acting on the data methods together as a single unit. In encapsulation, the variable of a class will be hidden from other class and can be accessed only through the methods and the current class. So here you're putting all of the variables and methods together so no one else can access it. So you're hiding it. You're collecting them like in a capsule, like putting them together. A simple way that you can encapsulate something is changing the if it's public, just go private. Now you can access it. You can see an error is popping up here for brand. If you're not in the class on the capsule, you can't access or mess with the brand in this case. Very simple, brief. Yeah, I wanted to do this video. I'm feeling like it's getting longer, so I want to just like wrap up, make it fast, because I know it's gonna get tedious and slow. As an now access modifier. As the name suggests, access modifier in Java helps to restrict the scope of a class constructor variable method or data member. There are four types of access modifiers in Java. The default, you do not know keyword. Private, protected, and public. I think I also included a diagram, this one, because I feel like it's way easier to understand it that way if I just speak. So if you put public, anyone can access. If it's protector, global cannot access. So your class, package, subclass cannot still access. Default is no keyword or nothing. Your class and package can access. And even if it's private, only in the class, which is like encapsulating in the previous, such as the previous one. So you can, this is the access modifier. In this case, we're also using public. So moving on. So the last one, yeah. File input and output. Java input and output stream is the flow of data that it can either read from or write to. It is used to perform read and write operation in file permanently. Java uses streams to perform these tasks. Java I/O streams is called file handling or file I/O. It is available on java.io package. For this one, we did a whole lab 18 about reading from a file, writing to a file. Here we see we import java.io file, and that one we need this file writer to write, print writer, and then we created a loop in which it's gonna ask for ID, password, and if you wanna keep adding more for to the in the to the text files. In this case, if we had a ID text file and a password text file, and it's gonna be a loop that is gonna ask you if you wanna add more and more, and then if you wanna get out, you need to make sure you close them. And that's it. that wraps up everything. So thank you. I try to explain as fast as possible and best of my ability what we've seen so far in the Java course, and I think hopefully it was sufficient for you to like prove that I'm actually learning something from this class. Thank you. Have a nice day.